Good evening, everybody, wherever you may be. Welcome to the first ever episode of the Blue Lot Breakdown. I'm your host, Zach. Blue Lot Breakdown is a show where we're going to be going over all things West Virginia Mountaineers football, happenings going on in and around the Big 12, and just college football as a whole. So, quick intro about myself. I'm an alumni of West Virginia University, a super fan. And yeah, I just am sick. I've relocated since to a place that there aren't many Mountaineer fans. So I just kind of need a place where I can vent my frustrations and praises for this team that no one around here cares about. So I figured it's fitting, with fall camp starting this week and this being the first episode of the show, to just go ahead and start out by doing game by game predictions. So let's go ahead and recap last year. We sucked. Notice here under the key victories tab. Arizona 31-26, Cincy 31-24, UCF 31-21. What do three of these opponents have in common? They were the three bottom feeders of the conference last year, so not exactly great. Taking a look over at our worst losses, we of course know Texas Tech, where we took the loss the last game of the regular season with a final score of 52-15. However, silver linings. That game was Neil Brown's last game that he coached at West Virginia University. Up next, we have the backyard brawl where we played the University of Schittsburg, and we blew a 10-point lead in the last 5 minutes of the game. And that game totally got Neil Brown. And then, of course, to open up the 2024 season, we embarrassed ourselves under the national spotlight, putting up numbers of 34-12. So in terms of the stats per game, not really too great. Offensive yards per game, 405.4. And we ranked 10th in the Big 12 in total offense, 53rd in the country. So overall, not horrendous. Sorry, I was looking at my cat running around. But the defense, completely different story. Complete dog water. 110th nationally and 14th in the Big 12. Big 12. So not really great. So what really went down in the offseason? So Rich Rod is back, baby. Rich Rod is home. Now, I know that there are still some mixed feelings about the hire with how he left back in 2007. I'll be fully honest. When I was 7 years old, I was a Syracuse fan. I was not a West Virginia fan. I also didn't really even care about football. So basically, I'm not exactly the best person to ask my feelings about how I feel about him coming back, but overall, I'm gonna share my feelings with you anyways. I think he's a great coach. I think he was the right hire. I'm probably gonna do a separate video on Rich Rogers as a whole and as a coach at some point in the near future. But I'm stoked to have him back coaching the Mountaineers this season, and I really believe that he's going to be he's the future of the program, and he's really going to kind of bring us back to the national spotlight. So key departures. It really sucks that we had to lose Josiah Trotter over to Mizzou. He's a legacy player, freshman All-American last year, and he was really fantastic. But we had a couple guys go to the league and a couple guys trying to make their way onto a roster this year. Wyatt Milan, of course, went off to the NFL, as well as a couple of other our guys as well. We also lost Trey Lathan to an in-conference foe in Kansas. And I say key departures, not in the sense that it's necessarily bad that the entire secondary left. And it's not necessarily bad because we weren't any good. We had the worst pass defense in the entire country. So, I'm really not too sad about it. And I don't think many of our fans are. Key additions. So throughout this video, I'm going to kind of assume that all of our guys that currently have waiver problems are going to end up being fine. It's just easier that way. So one of these guys that might have a waiver issue is Jamori Robertson. He's an edge rusher out of UTSA. First team all conference last year. He was a highly sought after guy in the transfer portal. Led the team in sacks and TFL. So he's going to be a fantastic leader on not just the defensive line, but just the defense as a whole. We also brought in Cam Vaughn from Jack State, following Rich Rod over there from the Gamecocks. And I know he's not necessarily a player, but we also added to the staff in the offseason Zach Galley, defensive coordinator out of Oklahoma. Now, Zach Galley, if you haven't read up on him, fix that right now. Fix that as soon as possible. He's a fantastic defensive coordinator. The fact that we purged him from Oklahoma is kind of still mind-boggling to me that we outbid them in a bidding war. But it's great. I'm not complaining. He's a fantastic defensive mind, one of the greatest of the young minds in the country. He's definitely going to be a head coach one day, although I hope it's not for a while because I want this guy coaching our defense for as long as we can. But he does have a bit of history with Rich Rod, coach of them. I believe it was down at University of Louisiana Monroe. So they already know each other. They know they work well together. So I'm really excited to kind of see what he can bring to the table in terms of the defense. So, all right. So aside from myself, how does everybody else stack up to how they think that we're going to do this season? Well, doesn't look great. Athlon Sports has us at 14th out of 16th in the Big 12. Phil Steele has us finishing dead last. CBS Sports 14th and ESPN 16th. So, yeah, not looking great in the eyes of the media, but honestly, I'm all for it because West Virginia always plays at their best, regardless of the sport, when everybody is doubting on us. So, taking a look at the schedule. On paper, it looks like a pretty difficult schedule, but I do think that there are some pretty good key victories that we can kind of squeeze in here. And I think at the very least, we'll get to bowl eligibility, but we're going to kind of break each opponent game by game. I'll probably do more in-depth analysis on each team once we get to those respective game weeks. So this is going to be kind of like the Cliff Notes version, right? So starting out week 1, we got to go. We are hosting Robert Morris. Thank God we are not opening up the season with Penn State for the third year in a row. Or even just starting out the season with any Power 4 opponent. I'm stoked that we actually finally, for the first time in several years, get a warm-up game. So honestly, the Colonials don't bring back a whole lot of talent. I spent like a good 34, 45 minutes researching this roster. And when you go to 2024 stats and you pretty much any category across the board, when you sort from best to worst, pretty much all those players are gone. They do have a quarterback, though, that I think does show some promise for the Colonials. That is Zach Tanner. I think it'll be pretty good. The offensive line, they look to be pretty good size for an FCS program, so we'll kind of see how they did. They did put up some decent numbers, put together 7 wins with a pretty tough schedule last year. So, so we'll see how they do. But keys to this game, don't try and get cute. We got to keep this as simple as possible without diving too much into the playbook. I really want to see in this game I want to see as many quarterbacks as we can out there on the field and just kind of getting those live reps. Rich Rod has been preaching a lot about how he's willing to play as many quarterbacks as he can and wants to. And this is a really excellent opportunity to do so. I imagine they'll kind of like keep it close-ish for the first like quarter and a half, just because we're kind of trying out some things, seeing what groups of guys work well together. But honestly, I think, once we get to the second half, we're going to see them kind of like pull away here pretty quickly. But I don't really want to see anyone shine too much in this. I kind of wanted just to see, I want to see like a good even distribution of snaps. So like for like 3, maybe even 4 quarterbacks. But whatever we do, we just cannot put ourselves in a position where this game is somewhat tight for a little while, because I just don't want to have to dive deeper into the playbook and just kind of give away free film to our, the opponents that really matter. So easy win. West Virginia starts off the year 1-0. Then we go travel on the road to the Ohio University Bobcats. So for some reason we signed that contract to start on their turf, but whatever. So Ohio University actually has a fantastic program. Always a great school. They have a really great student body there that are pretty passionate about the program, just because they have some success over the past couple of years. However, this year they have a brutal schedule. I think it's going to be very tough for them to repeat the 10-11 win seasons that they've been used to for the past few years. And they also got some pretty key departures in the offseason that I think will be pretty difficult to replace for a good part of the year. And just to see who's going to step in to fill those shoes. However, one guy that not necessarily, I won't say scares me, but one guy that is definitely a threat on this roster is quarterback Parker Navarro. Now he put up some really good rushing numbers on the ground last year. He rushed for around I think it was just over 1,000 yards. So he's a pretty quick guy. He's obviously extremely mobile. Key to this game is just honestly just putting pressure to him as early as we possible, but also containing him, keeping him from getting into open space. D-line's got to remain locked in and disciplined, and we just got to tackle well in the open field. We can't underestimate this team. A lot of people are thinking like, oh yeah, starting out on the road. OU is, I think, 2.5, 3 hours from Morgantown, and they're going to have way more Mountaineer fans there than you are going to have OU fans. So it's essentially going to be like playing in a neutral site, not like they have any kind of, going into Athens, Ohio is very threatening in the first place. But whatever we do, we cannot underestimate this team. Just establish the run game and, dive a little bit deeper into the playbook as opposed to last week, still playing a couple of quarterbacks, and I think we'll be fine. I think Ohio U can maybe keep it, a relatively close game within 7 to 10 points for the first half, maybe even going into some of the third quarter, but then we start to pull away in the late in the third and into the fourth. WVU starts off the year 2-0. Moving on to the backyard brawl. This year, we are going to be hosting the Panthers. This is a game I am absolutely stoked for, as you should be. If you're a college football fan in general, you should be stoked for this game. The storyline behind it is incredible. If you aren't aware, Rich Rod's last game that he coached at West Virginia back in '07 was the infamous loss to Pittsburgh, where they beat us 13-9, keeping us out of the college football national championship game. And so this game is actually being played on September 13th, 9/13. Pretty nice coincidence. I think that College Game Day is going to be here without a doubt. Uh, Kirk Herbstreit and Pat McAfee have already praised this rivalry. And like just the other day, I think it was like last week or something on the Pat McAfee show, they were both ranting and raving how they got to get back here for this game. So the storyline is there. Kirk Herbstreit loves Pat McAfee, and Pat McAfee loves the Mountaineers. So I think there's an excellent chance, as long as Pitt and West Virginia come into this game 3-0, we're hosting game day. But now, kind of getting into their roster just a little bit here. So they bring back a lot of good talent. They're a pretty experienced team. And honestly, and as much as I hate Pat Narduzzi, he does coach. He is a great football coach, especially when it comes to coaching up his defense. First up, I want to talk about Eli Holstein. He had a little bit of injury trouble last year, but when he was healthy, he's an excellent quarterback. I think he's going to end up, he's definitely going to end up playing in the league, probably more like in a backup or like supportive role. But regardless, he is an excellent quarterback. And he really was kind of like coming into his own. And he matured. It seemed like he matured a lot, like as a quarterback, just as the season progressed until he got injured and everything. But he comes back, so he's definitely going to be a threat for us. And then we also got Desmond Reed, running back, and he's a force to be reckoned with. He's a pretty powerful. He's a little bit undersized, but he has pretty good numbers in terms of his average yards per carry. So he's definitely a guy you're going to want to look out for. And then also Kyle Lewis, he's running. I think he's their Mike linebacker. I just know he's in the linebacking core. I don't remember exactly where he's at, but he put up the most tackles on the defense last year. So definitely a key player to watch on the defense. So basically, notable moment of this game last year, not of this game, but notable moment of the Pittsburgh Panthers season last year is losing 6 straight games in the second half of their season, which I just find hilarious. So yeah, eat shit Pitt. So moving on, keys to the game, just don't blow the lead. Okay, I think this team is honestly going to be better than our team that we had last year. And so if you just assume that we nearly beat them last year on their turf, all we got to do is just not blow the lead with 4 minutes and 55 seconds left to play. So if our secondary does what they're supposed to, we establish the run game, maintain control of the clock, we're going to be just fine in this game. The home crowd is going to be rocking. I think that this is a really tough draw for Pitt. Rich Rod has had this game. If he was ever going to get the opportunity to coach this game one more time in his career, he would absolutely have taken that opportunity. Now he's got it. He's had this game circled in red for the past 18 years. He wants it. He's going to be angry. He's going to be way too much of a competitor to let this game fall out of reach. And he's going to make it known to the guys that are out there playing for the Mountaineers how important this game is. So tough draw for Pitt. I think West Virginia starts out the year 4-0. So then we got to go and start out conference play at Kansas. So I'm not super high on Kansas this year. I think how good Kansas is really just kind of like what version of Jalen Daniels are you going to get? Jalen Daniels, I think, is a good quarterback. He just kind of like saw some struggles for the first half of last year. He did have some good moments, of course, but it's like I said, it's really just a matter of what version are you going to get, and you really have no idea until kickoff. But even still, like I said, I think he is a good quarterback, so he's definitely a guy that we're going to watch out. We're going to want to watch out for. And then one of our former Mountaineers, linebacker Trey Lathan, he's an excellent player. He's a guy that you're going to watch on the defense. And then wide receiver Emmanuel Henderson, he led the team. I think it was I don't remember exactly. When I do a full team breakdown, I'll actually break down all the numbers and stuff. But I believe he was their leading. He had the most receiving yards, I think, of the team last year. But anywho, like I said, I hate the timing of this game. It's Kansas's home opener in conference play in a brand newly renovated stadium. The crowd's going to be rocking. I think it's just a tough draw for us. I don't think that we're going to win this game. I think West Virginia falls to 4-1 on the season. Up next, we got Utah. So I can't predict Utah. I really can't. I think Kyle Whittingham is an excellent coach. I just think he's aging out for the new age of college football. And this year is just another one of those typical years where everybody's high on Utah. Literally everybody and their mother is saying that Utah is going to make a run for the Big 12 title this year. And I'm not buying it just because of how the past couple of seasons have gone for the Utes. I like the Utes a lot. I like their program. I think they're an awesome fan base, but I just don't. I'm not convinced. I really can't. I can't confidently pick this game until I watch them play. Um, and honestly, like knowing their struggles, well, okay, not knowing their struggles, but I'm assuming there's going to be struggles, especially bringing in new quarterback Devin Dampier. And Cam Rising finally gone, so at least we don't have to hear that all off season anymore. But where was I going with that? Oh yeah, coming off of a tough loss from last week at Kansas, I think what the Mountaineers are going to be fired up again. The home crowd's still going to be in it. I think it's a pretty tough draw for Utah. I think West Virginia gets back on the right track and they improve to 5-1. So this is where the schedule really kind of starts to pick up for the Mountaineers. Unfortunately, we got to go on the road. I think it's November 8th to play at BYU in Provo on a Friday night. Jake Retzlaff, no Jake Retzlaff. This is still an excellent football team that everybody needs to be on. That needs to be on everybody's radar this year. They didn't lose a whole ton of talent. And so they're bringing back a ton of production on both offensive line and the defensive line, especially. They're all big guys. They're all experienced guys. They're going to be very difficult to play on the same field with this fall. Honestly, our best bet in this game is just getting creative in terms of our blitz packages. Some guys in the interior, on the outside, have your corners do a couple of blitzes as well, and just get creative with it, but keep it under control. Don't blitz too many guys, or we're just gonna get blown over the top. But honestly, we just got to put pressure on this young quarterback. I think he's a little bit inexperienced, and he's kind of just getting thrown into the position of being the starter, being the guy. And we'll see how he does when the bright lights are shining down on him, and I guess we'll see. But honestly, we just got to keep control of the clock. Got to establish the run game, and honestly, if there's one thing I'd have to pick on their defense that I think looks a little bit suspect, I think it's in their secondary, just due to a little bit of inexperience there and guys that are coming up from lower levels. So we could just try it. I think we just try it out, hammering screens and the quick routes, just to kind of keep them on their heels, getting 3 to 4 yards on the ground whenever we can. We got to play with the chip on our shoulder for all 60 minutes of this game. It's going to be a dogfight, but I don't think West Virginia has a good enough roster to take this team head toe to toe. So I think West Virginia drops this game. They fall to 2-2. Moving on, we're going to at UCF. We're going to go play the Golden Knights, another team kind of in a similar situation as West Virginia right now. Bringing back head coach Scott Frost, who's there for the glory days of UCF football, where you went 13-0 against teams that sucked. Okay, with the exception of Auburn, fine, I'll give you that. They were a good team. Yeah, okay, give yourself your participation trophy for your national title. I don't care. Getting off my soapbox, though, they're very much in a rebuilding period, just like the Mountaineers are. However, I do think that the Mountaineers are slightly ahead in that rebuilding process as opposed to the Knights. I don't think they're going to have enough at this point in the year. The bounce house is I don't think the crowd's really going to be showing up for it that much, which, by the way, I don't know. I'm not super threatened by the bounce house. It hasn't really been. In my opinion, it hasn't really looked that intimidating since their glory days of the first time Scott Frost was around. Maybe you can bring that. Maybe you can bring that kind of thing back here. I don't know. I think UCF is going to get taken down by the Mountaineers pretty easily here. I think in Week 8, West Virginia becomes bowl eligible, going to 6-2. So moving on, we got to play TCU homecoming. So this is tough. Honestly, it's very tough. Here's my hot take. Coming into this game, TCU is going to have a losing record of 3-4. TCU has a top 15 hardest schedule in the entire country, and one of, if not the hardest schedule in all of the Big 12. It's very tough. I think that they have an excellent roster. Just their schedule is a bit of a tough draw. Especially starting out the year playing at North Carolina. Yeah, they're in a rebuild, but I mean, who knows? It's Bill Belichick. They also got to play, I think it's like at Iowa State, maybe at Arizona State. But basically, the games leading up to this are very hard. I think TCU, like I said, comes in 3-4. So at that point, it's really just a matter of like, okay, what version of TCU are you going to get? Are you going to get a team that is coming in with a chip on their shoulder, ready to play, and all pissed off because they had these self expectations of playing for a Big 12 title? Or are you going to get a version of the team that is kind of rolling over and dying, guys looking to December to just go ahead and hit the portal? It's tough to say if that even ends up being the case. However, they do still have a ton of talent on this team that we're going to have to watch out for. I love Josh Hoover. He's an excellent quarterback. He's got a hell of an arm. He's going to do great things this year if things go right for him. And notice how the other two guys that are listed key players are their top wide receivers. The core is that good. Honest, I like how I say all things to say about this team is cap. I really don't think it's that. I really don't mean that aggressively. But look, our secondary just got to play discipline, and they all got to play above the level that they're used to playing at. Our entire secondary is completely rebuilt from the ground up. A lot of these guys coming from lower level programs, they're gonna have to play out their ass for all 60 minutes in order to be competitive in this game. Look, we blitz aggressively. Secondary keeps everything in front of them. I think we might be okay as long as we maintain our possessions. 3-4 yard runs, run the clock down, keep the ball in our offense's hands, and I think things could fall right for us. However, West Virginia's kind of cursed in terms of homecoming for the past several years. I don't think it's going to happen. I think West Virginia is going to drop this game, falling to 6-3 on the year. Moving on, we go on the road to play at Houston. So Houston brings in transfer quarterback Connor Weigman, transfer out of Texas A&M. So that's really excited for that program. I'm not high on Houston. They have a slightly easier schedule than in years past, but I guess I don't know. I'm not super high on them. I didn't really see too much on the roster that was super exciting. I think they're going to be kind of a two-trick pony. And all you got to do is really just kind of, and that being, okay, they're either going to try and throw bombs with Connor Weigman, or they're going to take advantage of star running back Rashawn Sanford and just see if they can put up 200 plus rushing yards on us. You eliminate one of those, you eliminate one of those, so they rely on the other, whether that be their pass game or their run game. And I think West Virginia will be able to lock away this game at Houston. West Virginia improves to 7-3 on the year. Week 11, we get to host Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes. Before we even talk about this team, I do just want to give a shout out to Coach Prime. Heard that he was recently announced that he was cancer free. He kind of kept that hidden away from the public eye. So prayers for him, shouts to him for getting through that and stuff. And I wish him and his family all the best. This slander that I have for Shedeur Sanders is really all just fun and games. I mean no shade towards the family or Shedeur or anything like that. He's a great quarterback. It's just kind of fun to poke fun at him. Colorado is bringing in their replacement for Shedeur Sanders and Caden Salter, transfer quarterback from the Liberty Flames. I'm pretty high on Caden. I think he's a pretty solid quarterback. He did really great things for Liberty, and I think Coach Prime is a pretty good judge of talent. I think he's going to do pretty well for them. But I mean, honestly, this is going to be everyone pretty much thinks that Colorado is taking a step back this year without Shedeur, without Travis Hunter. It's just a matter of how big that step is. I don't know. I don't know how big that step is going to be. Their offensive line was honestly the bane of this football team last year. They sucked. Shedeur Sanders was one of the most sacked quarterbacks in all of FBS last year, and it was because of that O-line. So if they fix their problems on the offensive line, I think they'll be fairly decent. Like they had they had like a passable defense last year, but they added some pretty good key pieces in the off season. I think they might be okay, but at the same time, I'm a little bit hesitant to pick this team too early. I think West Virginia can pick this game up. I think they can pick this game up and walk away 8-3. Then we go on the road to play Texas. Wait, hold on. I think I skipped. Hold on. Let me go back. What I lost track of my record. All right. 1-0, 2-0, 3-0, 3-1. I said 4-1, 4-2, 5-2, 5-3. Yeah, okay. 6-3. Okay, yeah, 7-3. Okay, that makes more sense. Then we go on the road to play at Arizona State. So Arizona State, they're forced to be reckoned with for sure. Once again, this year, I think they got a pretty light schedule that's going to be manageable for them, enough to maybe make a run towards the title game again, or at least be in the conversation when we get to this point of the season. Sam Leavitt is a great quarterback. Coming into this game, I think it really kind of what the environment's like. I think it entirely depends on how the season's going. This team has notoriously sucked for the past several years. And I got a feeling that if Arizona State coming off a Big 12 title suddenly just starts losing and they get the injury bug, everyone starts losing, I think they're going to lose that home crowd pretty quick. So, I mean, if they come into this game with a pretty shit record, it might not be a horrible environment to play in, but I don't know. It's tough to say. I don't really see that happening anyway, so I almost don't even want to bring it up. Look, they're stacked. If we may take control of the clock, if we can maybe, have a couple more, just one or, be plus 1 or 2 in terms of possessions or excuse me, turnovers, then maybe. But I mean, secondary got to play balls to the walls this entire game. Got to have a couple of sacks and TFLs to make some miracles happen. But I don't see West Virginia winning this game. I think they drop it and move to 7-4. Moving on to the final game of the regular season, West Virginia is going to host Texas Tech. Included that meme about Mr. Krabs because they spent among the most money in FBS on the roster in the offseason. Now, in my opinion, I think this is going to be just like 2023 Colorado, spending all this money on a brand new roster, all these transfers, the guys that are supposed to be all the top dogs from all these different programs, yada, yada, yada. I don't think it's going to mesh. I don't have any faith in Texas Tech becoming that dominant program that they've wanted. Now, I'm not really hating on Texas Tech. I think they got a great fan base and stuff. They got a good program. And just, I'm not buying it. Not to mention they're notorious for having a dog shit defense. I mean, look at that. First in offense last year and 15th in the Big 12, or 15th in defense of the Big 12. That's your pretty standard Texas Tech football team. I'm not convinced that they added enough defensively to be that top guy or to be those top guys in the Big 12. However, I still think the roster is still pretty stacked. I think they got a better roster than West Virginia. I don't see West Virginia walking away with a win in this one. So I think West Virginia loses their final game of the season, falling to 7-5. So overall record, like I said, 7-5. That is 4-5 conference record. So honestly, if Rich Rod could do that first year, great. Honestly, the most you can ask for in a year one head coach across the board is just to go bowling. But in our case, go bowling. But we have to beat Pitt, especially since that rivalry is going to be going away for the foreseeable future. So obviously that's what I would like to see more than anything else. And the biggest thing that I want to see out of this team is I want to see an identity. Now, I think the biggest downfall of the Neil Brown experiment is that team never had an identity. I mean, they might have had an identity of like what they were trying to do for like that season, but and never at any point did I think, oh, this is a Neil Brown team, other than when he was blowing games because of game management. So let me just say this. So like, okay, he comes in fall 2019. It's like, oh, he's got this. He comes from Troy. He's got this innovative offense. All right, we got some growing pains. Didn't really do much exciting in his first season. And then it's like, oh, okay, well we're gonna bring in JT Daniels and Graham Harrell. He's an air raid guy. So now we're gonna be an air raid team. That didn't work. And then we realized, like, oh, I've got this awesome athlete, Garrett Green, who's extremely mobile, runs like a 4.5 40-yard dash. He's going to be but he doesn't have that accurate of an arm. All right, we're going to be a run-first team. All right, yeah, that's what we're going to do. And that actually worked quite well. Okay, well, now, instead of letting that athlete be himself and be the scrambler that he wants to be, we're going to try and make him a pocket passer, and we're going to try and do what I want to do, and we're going to completely try and stifle this guy from doing what he wants to do, and we're going to also try to run the ball. It was never it was different every single year, and that's what I hated. With Rich Rod, we're going to get an identity. You're going to get a Rich Rod offense. It's the same offense he's been running since his day at Glenville State, and it's unchanged, but it's proven. And that's what I want to see. I want to see a Rich Rod team. So honestly, that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you very much for watching this show. If you like what you see, definitely feel free to subscribe, hit the thumbs up, send this to a fellow Mountaineer fan. If you disagree with my takes, that's fine. Feel free to tell me why down in the comment section. I'd love to have a conversation with you. Don't know how often I'm planning on uploading. It's probably going to be when I feel like it, sort of thing. I am working on some pretty cool projects right now, though, for the channel, so definitely stay tuned for that. But yeah, like I said, thank you guys very much for watching, and have a good rest of your weekend. Later.